Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Kansas City Royals. We are at the start of the 2036 playoffs, and the Royals had the best record in baseball, so we're going to have home field advantage for as long as the Royals are alive. Big season ahead of us. We have won back-to-back World Series championships, so the Royals are going for a three-peat here in 2036, which, if they're able to achieve it, would mark the first three-peat in baseball in 36 years, since the Yankees did it in 1998, 1999, and 2000. So a lot of pressure on these Royals. As I mentioned, did have the best record in baseball. I don't feel that this team is as good as the team that has won the last two championships. Certainly, we have to be considered one of the favorites as the playoffs begin, with the best record in baseball, obviously. But I think it's going to be a tough road for us to actually win it all. Pitching staff, the same four starters in the rotation as last year. You can see right now Bryce Hillman is viewed as the number one, Ben Borgman number two, Caleb Lagerwell three, and Eddie Chavera number four. We've already kind of put our projected playoff roster into the system. So we're down to 26 players from the 28 that we had in September call-ups. And we're also going to be going with just 12 pitchers. And what that meant is that the rookie Dan Keough did not make the playoff roster. We talked about him a lot this past season. Former second-round pick who we thought was eventually going to become one of the cornerstones of our rotation. But the fact that he doesn't throw that hard and he's got below-average movement on his pitches really has crippled his career, in my view. You can see he gave up 30 home runs in just 97 and a third innings pitched. He has electric stuff. He also struck out 149 batters with only 30 walks in those 97 and a third innings pitched. But overall, the ERA was 5.36, and the WAR was negative half a win. His Sierra was 1.96, so maybe that indicates that there's something there. But certainly can't have someone who's given up almost a home run every 3 innings, pitching critical games in the playoffs. So it was a pretty easy decision to take Keough off of the playoff roster. And what that enabled us to do was put backup utility infielder Billy Dominguez onto the roster. He has been I don't want to say a hugely important player for us, but you can see the last 3 years, 111 at-bats, 138 at-bats, and 176 at-bats. We're always going to have injuries in our infield with the fragile players like Arrieta Laziosi, Willie Flores, and Bobby Witt Jr., and Dominguez has been a relatively young player who's had a capable bat and at least the versatility to play second base and third base, who's been a useful guy to move up and down between Omaha and Kansas City. He's out of option years now, so he's going to have to be waived and DFA'd if we do that in the future. But he's going to be playing a potentially important role for us. The only way that he could get knocked off the roster is if Willie Flores comes back from that fractured finger that's kept him out since the end of June, a little bit early. You can see his recovery time is 1 week. Fortunately, we don't have to play in the wild card round, so there's probably 4 to 5 days before our series will begin. So if Flores happens to heal a little quicker or is maybe only a day away from coming back, there's a chance that we will put him onto the ultimate playoff roster when our series finally starts. The kind of sad thing that I noticed that I want to spend a little time talking about before we jump into the playoffs is that you'll notice, if you look closely, that Billy Dominguez is actually listed as our starting third baseman against right-handed pitchers, according to what Bobby Crosby wants to do with the lineup. And Bobby Witt Jr. is a platoon player at this point, and he's on the bad side of the platoon, playing only against left-handed pitchers. So I had talked over the past several seasons of this sim that I wanted to run this sim until Bobby Witt Jr. retired. A while back, we signed him to a 6-year extension that we thought would get him through the end of his career. He was still an excellent player last year when he was making $40 million, but he has really dropped off the face of the earth, and he's now 36 years old. I think he'll probably come back next year. But if you look at his profile at this point, it's really dramatic how quickly he has fallen off. Last season, he put up a 6.5 WAR in 110 games, 314 batting average. If he hadn't gotten hurt, he would have been in the running for the Most Valuable Player award. He still was an all-star and won a Silver Slugger award and ended up winning the MVP in our ALDS victory last year. And then this year, he's just absolutely fallen off the map. His batting average is dropped by over 100 points, only 16 homers and 386 at-bats. And he's now a negative WAR player, cost us almost a win over the course of the year. And the amazing thing, this is a player, as you can see, who was a 9-time Gold Glove winner and I think a 10-time All-Star for us. And even his glove is just gone now. Kind of looking at his ratings, not his ratings, I want to look at his scouting history. Since May of last year, he has just fallen off. A season and a half ago, his contact has dropped by 20 points. His power's dropped by 10 points. His eyes dropped by 5 points. And his defensive rating has just completely fallen apart by 30 points. He's gone from being an above-average defensive player who was a perennial Gold Glove winner to somebody that you don't even want to play out there. And that obviously can happen to players in their mid-30s, but when we signed Bobby Witt Jr. to this contract 2 seasons ago, the thought was that, in 2007, 2038, 2039, as he did start to age, we might have some struggles in kind of the debate between giving him enough playing time to potentially chase 400 home runs or 1,500 runs scored or maybe even 3,000 hits. And that would be kind of an interesting decision for me to make while kind of running this organization. And honestly, with the way that he's fallen off the map in terms of his skill and his ratings, we're not going to be having any of those debates because he's just not a very productive player anymore. So even if he plays with us for another 2 or 3 seasons, it just doesn't seem like there's any way that he's going to hit any of those big round numbers that you think of with Hall of Famers. That being said, because of the excellent bat he's had and the brilliant defense he's had through the course of his career, he's put up over an 80 WAR over the course of his career at this point. Obviously, that could come down over the next few years, but certainly in Hall of Fame territory with the WAR that he put up. But the kind of existential debate that we were kind of hoping to have these next few years, do we play Bobby Witt Jr. every day when he's kind of a declining player? Do we watch him hit 260 and then drop to 240 and still keep giving him playing time? We're just not even going to get to have that kind of fun because he has just fallen off the map so completely. And as I mentioned, Dominguez is the guy who Bobby Crosby wants in the starting lineup against right-handed batters. And when you look at their ratings, Dominguez is a very average-ish looking bat against right-handed pitchers at this point. But when you look at Bobby Witt Jr. against right-handed pitchers, he is clearly a below-average bat at this point. And he's honestly probably below average-ish against left-handed pitchers. But it just so happens that he's a little bit better maybe than the left-handed batter Dominguez against lefties. So it's kind of disappointing that not going to get to kind of have the fun of actively trying to balance the debate between playing time for Bobby Witt Jr. and chasing after some of those goals versus perhaps playing a better player, because he's just not very good of a player at this point. So I don't think he'll retire after this season, simply because I think typically with a player like him, he'll kind of announce it at some point during the year. But it would not shock me if next season, when he's getting paid $34 million as kind of his last season in the majors, we're going to keep him on the team regardless of how bad he is, just to kind of play out this contract, make things a little interesting. But it's not going to be quite as interesting in these coming seasons to kind of have him on the team, because instead of a gradual slow decline, which I was thinking we would have with him through his mid to late 30s, his talent has just really fallen off the map. So some of those decisions that might have been interesting just aren't going to happen, because he's probably, best case scenario, a platoon player going forward at third base with the likes of Dominguez and Flores when he comes back off the IL. And honestly, it's conceivable that he'll just be a bench player for us next year, which is kind of sad, but it is what it is. So turning from Bobby Witt Jr. to the playoff tree, the Royals and the Yankees have the byes in the American League. The Mets and the Cubs have the byes in the National League. So certainly a lot of people in New York City are hoping for a Subway Series. Obviously out in the Midwest, we are hoping that the Royals can get back to a third straight World Series and hopefully win when we get there. It looks like we will be playing against either the Angels or the Blue Jays when the ALDS begins in a few days. And in the first round of the playoffs, the Angels, the Astros, the Brewers, and the Phillies all moved on. So the Royals versus the Angels. Over the last few seasons, we have played the Angels a few times in the playoffs, so that's an interesting matchup. But obviously a lot of nasty history in real baseball over the past several years between the Yankees and Astros, so that's an interesting one. And then out in the National League, you've got a NL East battle with the Mets and the Phillies, and a NL Central battle with the Cubs and the Brewers. So should be some pretty interesting series here. We will take a look at the injury situation with our good buddy Willie Flores, still down for 3 days with that fractured finger. So I think we're going to keep the roster the way that it is and keep Dominguez up. Honestly, there's a little bit of an argument to when Flores is ready to send Bobby Witt Jr., take him off of the playoff roster. I don't think I can do that to him. I have a heart that might only be a little larger than that of the Grinch before he hears the Who's singing in Whoville. But I don't think I have the heart to take Bobby Witt Jr. off of the playoff roster for this team. And that's assuming that we even can get by the Los Angeles Angels. So that'll be our first focus. But we are going to let Flores recover from that injury. So we will be without him for this series, but we've been without him the whole second half of the year. So hopefully that won't have a significant impact on our potential success. Bryce Hillman, pitcher who we picked up in a trade from Pittsburgh a couple years ago, 12-8 this year with a 4.09 ERA. Like the fact that he is a durable starter, like his good work ethic, and like the fact that he's got a great fastball, solid slider, and forkball. Adds up to a pretty productive pitcher as an extreme ground baller who throws in the high 90s. So we actually did sign him to a 6-year extension at $15 million a year this season. So he's going to be an important part of our rotation going forward. And he gets the start in Game 1, going up against Gavin Seabold. Looks like he split the year between AAA and the majors. 3-5 record with a 3.76 ERA and 52 2/3 innings pitched. Is an extreme fly ball pitcher without great movement, certainly not in Dan Keough poor movement kind of range, but does look like a pitcher that we might be able to hit a few homers off. He did give up 11 dingers and 52 2/3 innings pitched this year, so would think that the pitching matchup favors us in Game 1 of this series. You can see that the Royals first in the league in runs scored, but only 6th in runs against this year. The Angels a bit of an opposite profile. They were middle of the pack, 7th in runs scored, but had the second most effective pitching staff in the American League. And we were actually 2-4 against them this year. So hopefully having home field advantage will allow us to turn the tables on them in this ALDS series. In Game 1, we do get a 7-6 victory, and we did get a couple of homers from shortstop Tony Fonseca and first baseman Jonathan Ojeda. Played 13 innings. Wow, so quite a game. We scored 3 in the 7th to take a big lead. They came back with 4 in the 8th to take a lead on us. We got a run in the 9th to push things into extra innings, and then a run in the 13th. Fonseca with a run-scoring single for the walk-off, and then he obviously also hit a home run. Hey, look, Bobby Witt Jr. with a run-scoring double in the 9th inning. So the veteran came through for us, 1 for 2 with that home run. So, or not that home run, that run-scoring double. The home runs were obviously Fonseca and Ojeda with the home runs, if I could remember to speak properly. Hillman, respectable, 2 earned runs over 5 innings. Seabold didn't last very long, but he was pretty effective. And wow, the 9 pitchers used by the Angels. I mean, we used 7, but that 9 really stands out. You can see our former reliever Will Goebel among the pitchers that they used. But we got the win in Game 1 of the series. Tony Fonseca, player of the game, our shortstop. You would think if you hit a home run and then a walk-off single in the bottom of the 13th, 3 for 6 overall, drove in 4 runs, scored once. That definitely sounds like the profile for a player of a game. So the Royals are on to Game 2 of this series. You can see the matchup here. Cassius Thomas going to be on the mound for the Angels. And our longtime ace, Ben Borgman, who definitely struggled this year. We kept him healthier than perhaps we had hoped. He was basically out there every 5 days, started 31 games, 148 1/3 innings pitched. So, just going 80 pitch limit on him and not even getting an average of 5 innings a start. We did nurse him through the season, despite the fact that he's wrecked physically. But by far the worst year since he's came to the Royals with a 5.34 ERA. Did still put up a 1.3 WAR with a 3.44 Sierra. But definitely not a vintage Ben Borgman season, and probably pretty likely that he'll opt into that final year of his contract next season unless he has a brilliant run here in the playoffs. And we had to give him a no-trade clause to get him to sign when we signed him to that deal, I guess 5 years ago at this point, since there's 1 year left on it after this one. He pitched well for us. He's been part of 3 world championship teams since he signed that deal, and he won the Cy Young Award in 2034. So it's been a productive contract for us and rewarding for the Royals, but with the third pitch being a below-average fastball for him at this point, it seems like his effectiveness has definitely dropped off the map. That being said, we are going to loosen the reins on him a little bit before now that we're in the playoffs and allow his pitch count to go up to 90. If he's effective and he's pitching well, hopefully that means that maybe we can get another inning out of him. And you can see one random award awarded today. Jonathan Ojeda, our second-year first baseman, 295, 9 homers, 23 ribbies, and 18 runs scored to win the batter of the month for the American League for September. But we're obviously more focused on him, hopefully continuing to hit home runs here in the playoffs now that the calendar has turned to October. Cassius Thomas, a very effective pitcher for the Angels, 10-13 record with a 4.03 ERA this year, but still put up a 2.6 WAR. So the pitching matchup in this one is looking probably a little more even than the last game. But the Royals get another 7-6 victory. Marco Estrada, our brilliant young rookie pitcher, some important relief from him as he ended up getting the W, and Javi Medina with a home run. So taking a look at the box score, once again an extra inning game. And center fielder Angelo Velasquez with the walk-off single to give the Royals a 7-6 victory. Ooh, you can see we gave up 6 runs there in the third inning. So presumably they got to Borgman. Yeah, very ugly game for Borgman with 6 earned runs, 5 hits over 2 2/3. But I can definitely understand why Marco Estrada, the youngster, was player of the game. He came in the third inning and then gave us 7 1/3 innings of relief a day after the Royals used 7 pitchers. 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, 116 pitches. Looks like Estrada was brilliant. So that's an excellent performance. Once again, the Angels used a lot of pitchers today, 4 pitchers out of their bullpen, backing up Thomas after he left. But with the day off tomorrow should give both teams' pitching staff an opportunity to kind of get some rest. Presumably Estrada would not be available for a Game 3 after pitching 116 pitches in relief, but he had a nice rookie year for us, 16-4 record, 4.04 ERA. Him and Keough have been guys that we were hoping would grow up and become important members of our starting rotation for many years to come. And Estrada with 5 pitches in his arsenal that are all average to a little above average, respectable movement, pretty good control. Certainly looks like he can be an effective lefty in our rotation for hopefully many years to come, even though as our 5th starter for most of this season, he's been moved to that bullpen role for the playoffs. But certainly paid off today with the way that he backed up Borgman when Borgman got rocked early and often by the Angels in that third inning. So we're going to be moving on to a Game 3, and we are now on the road in Los Angeles. Willie Flores is eligible to come off of the IL, but we don't have anyone injured, so can't get him onto the roster for this series. Hopefully it won't come back to haunt us. Just need to win one of these final 3 games. Caleb Lagerwell Did spend a little time on the IL this year, pitched just 21 games for us, but put up a 9-3 record with a 3.10 ERA. Another good, solid season from our longtime starter. He'll be going up against Eduardo Dominguez, another left-hander, which means we will see Bobby Witt Jr. in the starting lineup. Looks like the Angels picked him up with a trade with the Tigers right before the trade deadline. He was 5-7 with a 3.98 ERA for the Tigers, 6-1 when he moved over to the Angels with a 3.26 ERA. So he was a pretty important player as the Angels pushed to get into the playoffs. Looks like a really good pitching matchup here in Game 3. And Kansas City, after winning the 2 close games, an 11-3 victory. Caleb Lagerwell continues to be one of the great postseason pitchers in the history of baseball. You can see Bobby Witt Jr. did hit a homer. 2 more from Jonathan Ojeda, who got the Series MVP award. So everything worked out well for the Royals in this series as we sweep the Angels to move on to the American League Championship Series. Bobby Witt Jr. did have that 1 homer, drove in 3 runs. Ojeda with the 2 dingers had 5 runs driven in. And Lagerwell was a quality start, not a brilliant start, but 3 earned runs over 6 1/3 innings. Choi and Pryor came on and pitched pretty clean relief, just allowing 1 hit and 1 walk over the last 2 2/3 innings. So you can't ask for anything better than that. A 3-game sweep for the Royals. We'll take a look at the playoff tree and see what else is going on. Looks like the Yankees have an opportunity to sweep the Astros, which would set up a potential rematch of last year's ALCS, which was also between the Royals and the Yankees. And both of the National League series are 1-1 at this point. And everything in these playoff series is going as well as possible for the Royals. Each of the other 3 divisional series are going to decide in Game 5. So we're getting a lot of rest while the other teams are facing the potential for some injuries. See what happens in the final games of these series, whether we'll be going up against the Yankees or the Astros in the ALCS, and also find out who's going to be moving on. Looks like we had a couple retirements from our AAA team as their season comes to an end. Before it flipped over there, it looked like the Yankees had beaten the Astros. Yes, they did win that 3-2. We'll see what happens today in the NLDS with those 2 series over there. So the 2 top teams in the American League are the ones moving on. And the 2 top teams in the National League are the ones moving on. One of those rare situations with the 4 best teams in baseball that all had the first round byes are the 4 teams alive as we head into the League Championship Series, where the Yankees are going to get a chance at getting some revenge on us for beating them in the ALCS last year. And with Willie Flores now healthy, we had a decision to make, and I could not be the guy who took Bobby Witt Jr. off of the playoff roster for the Kansas City Royals after everything that he's meant to this organization. So you can see that Billy Dominguez off the playoff roster for this ALCS. It is kind of interesting when we look at the potential roster or the potential lineups from Bobby Crosby. Bobby Witt Jr. still is in the lineup against left-handers, but with Willie Flores back, he is now our full-time third baseman. So Bobby Witt Jr. is our DH against left-handers. So he still will occasionally be in the lineup, assuming that the Yankees throw some left-handed starting pitchers at us. Definitely not as good defensively as Billy Dominguez at this point, and he's also not as versatile. It seems like it was just a few seasons ago that Bobby Witt Jr. would have been a competent shortstop when we looked at his position ratings, and at this point he's a well below average third baseman defensively. So good that we don't have to play him defensively, but it certainly does limit our defensive flexibility to have him on the roster rather than Dominguez. But as I said, especially after he hit that home run in Game 3 of the ALDS, there was no way that I was taking Bobby Witt Jr. off the roster, even if it was technically probably the right decision. Once a Royal, always a Royal for Bobby Witt Jr. And it should be a great series here in the ALCS between the Yankees and the Royals. As I mentioned, it is a rematch from last year's American League Championship Series, which we took 4-1, I believe. We were the first best offense. We already talked about that. The Yankees had the 4th best offense in the American League, but their pitching staff a little better than ours, 3rd in the league in runs allowed. We did take the season 4-3, but we only finished 2 games above them for the best record in baseball. So the 2 best teams in baseball facing off in this ALCS, and looks like it's going to be an evenly matched series. Hopefully Hillman can get us off to a good start. He's going to be going up against Jack Wenninger, 12-8 with a 4.44 ERA for the Yankees. He's wrecked physically, 34 years old. Actually, 12-8, 4.44 ERA. It sounds a lot like Hillman. Yeah, 12-8 with a 4.09 ERA. So it looks like a pretty even matchup. Hopefully the Royals can get the series off to a good start with a win at Kauffman. And we do get a 6-1 victory. Got a home run from our catcher, Angelo Bolden. Presumably Hillman played pretty well in that 6-1 win. We jumped out with 3 runs in the 2nd inning and then added 3 more in the 5th. Wouldn't say it was a laugher, but pretty easy victory for the Royals. Hillman, 1 earned run over 5 2/3 innings. Nomar Funky Cold Medina and Santiago Suarez scoreless for 3 1/3 innings of relief. Didn't even allow a hit, those 2 pitchers over the last 3 1/3 innings. As I mentioned, we got the home run from Angelo Bolden, got a double from Victor Avelar, and also got a run batted in from Javi Medina. So a good start in the ALCS for the Royals. Always like to get that first win under our belts, and hopefully can keep the momentum going in Game 2. We're going to have Borgman on the mound, so that could be dicey at this point. I don't have a lot of confidence in him after that brutal appearance in Game 2 of the ALDS. I did actually consider changing the rotation and kind of forcing Borgman into the 4th spot in our rotation behind both Lagerwell and Chivera. But I decided against it. Going to let Bobby Crosby kind of manage things the way that he thinks is appropriate, and hope that Borgman can give us a big start here. He's going to be going up against the right-hander Rani Rincones, 10-6 record with a 4.03 ERA, 107 strikeouts over 149 2/3 innings. Does not have the best stuff in the world, but a ground ball pitcher with excellent movement, really good control. He's wrecked physically, and his 3rd pitch is a very mediocre changeup, but he's still been a reasonably effective pitcher for the Yankees this year. Hopefully we can get to him, though. And we do. We get a 6-4 victory. Borgman with the W. Home runs by Alex Vasquez, Victor Avelar, and Jonathan Ojeda. So a great start for the Royals in these first 2 games at home. Taking a look at the box score, you can see Avelar with a couple ribbies and Vasquez with a couple ribbies. Vasquez had a double in addition to his home run, got a triple from Javi Medina, triple from Tony Fonseca, so extra base hits all over the board for the Royals. Rincones gave up 5 earned runs in 4 1/3 innings, And Borgman, he was respectable. 2 runs, but only 1 earned over 5 2/3 innings. Scattered 8 hits and 2 walks, so certainly was not a dominant performance, but he got the W. Jesus Mercado, Gabe Pryor came on to get holds, and then Santiago Suarez on for the save in the 9th inning. So a nice performance by the Royals to take a 2-0 lead on the Yankees. So moving ahead, getting ready for Game 3, Caleb Lagerwell on the mound against Manny Rodriguez for the Yankees. 27-year-old, pretty solid pitcher, 15-10 record with a 4.08 ERA. Devastating curveball, a really good fastball, and a slider that he's still working on. So he has filthy stuff, excellent movement, not the best control in the world. You can see he led the AL in walks in 2034 and 2035 and still gave up 83 free passes in 189 2/3 innings this year. So did make the All-Star team last year, not this season, but looks like a tough matchup. Fortunately, we have Caleb Lagerwell on the mound, and we always feel good about things when Caleb is on the mound. And although Caleb didn't get the victory, we got a 9-3 win. Javi Medina with 6 runs batted in, 2 home runs. Laziosi also with a home run. Oof. You can see we scored early and often, 7 runs in those first 2 innings, and then we just kind of hung on. Caleb Lagerwell only went 4 2/3 innings, so he wasn't eligible for the win, gave up 3 runs. So not a vintage Caleb Lagerwell performance, but Chris Rutledge got the win in relief, and then Strada came on pitching for the first time since that brilliant relief performance he had in Game 2 of the ALDS to pitch 2 innings. Didn't give up a run, so he still is having a excellent playoff series, but obviously the young left fielder Javi Medina, the story of the game, 3 for 4, 2 runs scored, 6 runs batted in, and a couple of home runs. Laziosi also with a homer, Fonseca with a double, and Victor Avelar with a triple. So can't ask for a better start to the playoff series than these Royals have had thus far. We're moving on to Game 4 in New York, and finally going to get to see what Eddie Chavera can do in the playoffs as our number 4 starter. We'll finally get an opportunity to pitch in the playoffs this year. Hopefully he'll make it a sweep for us. Chavera, 9-10 record, not a vintage Eddie Chavera season. 4.88 ERA, so obviously a bit of a down year for him. Still put up a 3.3 WAR, but not quite as good as he was in his first 2 years with the Royals. And he'll be going up against Wardkelin Vasquez, 35-year-old for the Yankees. 14-6 with a 4.33 ERA this year for the veteran right-hander. Has a nice 4-pitch arsenal. Pretty good stuff, acceptable movement and control. Looks like it should be a pretty good pitching matchup, and the Yankees do get the win 6-5. So the hopes of a sweep are gone. Willie Flores looks like he's officially back from that broken finger, hitting his first home run of the postseason. But we don't get the sweep. Chavera was not great. 3 earned runs over 4 2/3 innings, and then Gabe Pryor, who came on, got the loss and a blown save. So we still had an opportunity to win when the Yankees scored some runs late. They got 2 in the bottom of the 8th to take the lead from us, and then they held us off in the 9th inning. Not a ton of offense from the Royals, 9 hits, but 8 of them were singles, everything except for the home run by Willie Flores. So the chance for a sweep is out of the realm of possibility. move on to Game 4, where we will, or Game 5, where we'll get a chance to see what Bryce Hillman can do against Wenninger in a matchup of Game 1. Obviously, we've got home field advantage if we need it for Games 6 and 7, but the hope is to just get the series over as quickly as possible. So in a rematch of Game 1, Hillman and Wenninger on the mound in the Bronx, and a 9-0 win for the Royals. Home runs from Vasquez, Avelar, and Ojeda. Hillman got the win to go to 2-0. Javi Medina, probably largely because of that 6 RBI game in Game 3. The series MVP, big win for the Royals, allowed just 3 hits. So obviously Hillman was excellent. 3 hits over 7 innings, 10 strikeouts. Choi, who we picked up right before the trade deadline, was not great for us in the regular season, but 2 innings, allowing just a walk and striking out 3 to close things out in the rout. Big games from Vasquez with the 2 ribbies, Ojeda with 3, Avelar with a couple ribbies, and then Tony Fonseca 2 for 4 with a couple ribbies, batting 9th for us. So the Royals are on to the World Series for the 3rd straight year, and we are now just 4 games away from a potential three-peat. Looks like the Cubs are up 2-1 on the Mets, so we'll take a look at what's going to happen in that series and find out who we're going to be playing shortly. And it's going to be an interesting World Series between the Royals and the Cubs, although we are going for a 3rd straight championship. The Cubs have been in the World Series now 4 of the last 5 seasons, so in terms of making it to the big game, they've got an even better track record than we did. Between us and the Cubs, we've won 4 of the last 5 World Series championships. We won in 2031 over the Padres. They won in 2032 over the Red Sox. The Angels beat the Cubs in 2033. We beat the Cubs in 2034. We beat the Cubs in 2035. And now they have their opportunity to get revenge on us for that loss in 2034 by potentially preventing us from getting the rare accomplishment of the three-peat. So the teams did not face each other during the regular season, and it's all about the offense. As you know, we had the best offense in the AL, pretty average-ish pitching staff, ranked 6th. They had the 2nd best offense in the National League and a slightly below average pitching staff that finished 9th in runs against. We've got Bryce Hillman on the mound, and he is going to be going up against Edwin Campos. 29-year-old, went 14-9 with a 4.13 ERA for the Cubs. You can see he struck out over 200 batters 3 straight years now, so has a brilliant changeup, ground ball pitcher who throws in the mid-90s. Should be a interesting matchup for the Royals. Hopefully we can get things off to a good start here in Kansas City. And we do get a 3-2 win. Looks like Rutledge got the win, likely obviously in relief of Hillman, but they mention Hillman up here, so I'm guessing that he still pitched reasonably well. Santiago Suarez with the save. No home runs in the game. Tony Fonseca, 1 for 3 with a double today. Looks like in the 6th inning, they scored 2 runs on us in the 1st, and then we got a run in the 1st, a run in the 2nd, and then a run in the 6th, and then held them off. So that's why Hillman was good, giving up those 2 runs over 5 1/3 innings, but we didn't get the lead back until after he was out of the game. So that's why Rutledge got the victory. Suarez came on for the save. Got runs batted in from Ojeda and Fonseca, as we mentioned. Ooh, Julio Rodriguez injured for the Cubs, and Victor Avelar was ejected for arguing a strike call. What's Rodriguez look like these days? He's still a pretty good hitter, although he split. I guess he must have been injured because. He's injured again now, obviously, but obviously he was injured this year. Played just 34 games, 281 with 7 homers and 146 runs, 146 at bats. And you can see the last couple years with them, his full seasons, 26 homers, batting averages in the mid 280s. So still a pretty productive player. So that's not a good thing for them, that fractured hand while running the bases. So don't want to wish injuries on another team, but certainly you would think that probably increases the probability of the Royals winning some of the subsequent games in this series. So a Game 1 victory in the books for the Royals. Let's move on to Game 2 tomorrow in Kansas City. Borgman, who has had an awful game and a respectable game for us as a starter in the playoffs so far. We have won both of them. Is going to be going up against Jose Delgado, who looks like he's been pretty effective with a 1-0 record and a 1.59 ERA in the playoffs for the Cubs this season. During the regular season, 9-10 with a 4.97 ERA. Has a real good fastball. Power pitcher, throws in the mid to high 90s. Only struck out 142 batters, so other than the fastball, his stuff is not exceptional, but still should be a challenging matchup for us. Would love to get a 2-0 lead and win both of these games at home, put a little pressure onto the Cubs when we head northeast to Chicago. And we do that, a 16-4 victory. So Alex Vasquez and Angelo Bolden both with home runs. Choi in relief got the win, so I'm guessing we didn't get... we must not have gotten 5 innings from Borgman, because we scored 6 in the first and 5 in the third and then 4 in the sixth. So we just battered the Cubs early. Borgman was actually not great. 6 hits, 2 walks over 4 1/3 innings, allowed 4 runs. Choi came on, pitched an inning and 2/3, 2 clean innings from Pryor, although he did walk 3. And then Marco Estrada came on and continued his perfect playoff performance. He has not allowed a run in over 10 innings pitched in his playoff debut here as a rookie. So other than Borgman, got some excellent relief pitching from the Royals, and our catcher, Angelo Bolden, 3 for 4, 3 runs scored, 4 ribbies, and the home run to win player of the game. Got 3 ribbies from Vasquez, a couple from Medina, a couple from Ojeda, and 3 more from Fonseca. So the series is going about as well as you can hope at this point for the Royals. Got 2 wins in the first 2 games against the Cubs, and going to be headed to Chicago. Hopefully we can take at least 1 game there, and would certainly love to take 2 and not have to go back to Kansas City. And as we head into Game 3, Caleb Lagerwell, only 1 playoff win this postseason. I mean, he's only pitched 2 games, so that's not bad. But 1-0 with a 4.91 is not quite vintage Caleb Lagerwell postseason pitching, so it would be great to get a wonderful start from him today. You can see Hector White's been unlucky for the Cubs, 1-2 record, but a 2.30 ERA in the playoffs. Split the year between starting and pitching out of the bullpen for them. 5-4 record, 3 saves, 2.96 ERA, 2.6 WAR on the year. So he was pretty effective for them. It was really kind of his first fullish year in the majors, because you can see he played with the Dodgers in both 34 and 35, had partial seasons there. he was waived by the Dodgers after spring training. I must not have been looking at the waiver wire, because I certainly would have probably. Oh, actually, maybe this is the guy. I think we did put in a waiver claim on some pitcher. I can't remember whether it was Hector White or not, but we had the last pick, obviously coming off of a World Series championship, and someone else claimed the player that we were looking for. So it's possible that it was Hector White. I know that we did put in a claim for a pitcher who was on waivers at the beginning of this season, and I think it was someone from the Dodgers. So we tried to get him. Let's hope, or I think we may have tried to get him. I don't know that for sure. I'd have to go back and look at the video from a few episodes ago. But if he is the guy that we tried to get, let's hope that not getting him doesn't cost us here in Game 3 of the 2036 World Series. And we get a 7-1 win. Lagerwell with the win, White saddled with the loss. We are now on the brink of a three-peat. Lagerwell, that's a vintage Lagerwell performance in the playoffs. 1 earned run, 5 hits over 6 innings, no walks, 3 strikeouts. Estrada remains perfect in the playoffs as far as not allowing any runs. Choi comes on and pitches in the 9th to close things out for us. 7-1 victory, 3 runs driven in by Victor Avelar. We got doubles from Flores, Avelar, and Javi Medina. Couple runs scored by Alex Vasquez at DH. I've been trying to keep an eye on these box scores. It doesn't appear that Bobby Witt Jr. has really been playing much, if at all. Have to go back and see what his postseason numbers look like. But in the ALCS and now in the World Series, since Flores came back and took over at third base, there's definitely one game that he played, but I think we've been facing mostly right-handed pitchers, so have not seen much of Bobby Witt Jr. in these playoffs. But we are now just 1 win away from a three-peat, and I'm not going to lie, at the beginning of these playoffs, I didn't feel great about this team, and obviously it's not done yet. They could still do a 2004 Boston Red Sox to the New York Yankees to us, so I don't want to count my chickens before they're hatched, but the odds are certainly in our favor at this point. So we will get ready to move on to Game 4 tomorrow in Chicago. We are going to have Eddie Chavera on the mound. As we talked about earlier, he had a kind of a down year for us, only won 9 games. His ERA was, I think, the highest that he's had with us during the time that he's been with us. So it would be nice to get a big performance from him. He's been with the team 3 years now and has been a starting pitcher, obviously, all 3 of those seasons, and has a chance to be the winning pitcher as we win a 3rd consecutive World Series. So it's been a nice career move for Eddie Chavera to join us. He's got a chance to win a 3rd consecutive World Series in his 3rd season with the Royals. Darlin De La Cruz on the mound for the Cubs. Only a 3-4 record this year. He's a starter, but he doesn't have a ton of stamina. So 4.72 ERA over just 127 and 2/3 innings. So it looks like he's kind of a guy that they were, maybe using as an opener, just trying to get 3 or 4 or 5 innings out of with that low stamina. But a nice 4-pitch repertoire. Just doesn't have a ton of stamina, but a pretty respectable pitcher. So we'll see a few posted players from Japan. Again, I don't think this should be my main focus right now, but I just can't help myself. So a solid pitcher on the mound for the Cubs. Obviously would love to get the sweep, but it was not to be. A 4-0 victory, and De La Cruz must have won at least 5 innings despite his low stamina. Chivera saddled with the loss. Is that still O'Neill Cruz? Yeah, O'Neill Cruz at the age of 38. Wow, he had a nice year for the Cubs. 294, 31 homers, 85 ribbies, a couple of homers. Gilberto Rosas, also a home run, who another player had a huge year for them offensively. So we don't get the sweep. De La Cruz, no earned runs over 5 innings. Chivera wasn't horrible, 4 earned runs over 6 1/3. Medina came on and pitched an inning and 2/3, but just not a lot of offense from the Royals. Just 3 hits from Angelo Velasquez, Angelo Bolden, and Alex Vasquez. So hopefully we will get a little more offense in Game 5 of this series. It's nice that Games 6 and 7 will be at home if we need them, but would still certainly prefer to just get it done now. Bryce Hillman's been really good in the playoffs, 2-0 with a 1.96 ERA, going up against Edwin Campos, who was the Game 1 loser. And Kansas City, a 15-0 rout. Home runs by Victor Avelar and Javi Medina. Bryce Hillman gets the victory in Game 5. Alex Vasquez is the series MVP. And we have, shockingly, we've got the three-peat. We dropped 2 games in the playoffs for the second consecutive year. And we've built a juggernaut here with the Royals somehow. 3 consecutive World Series championships, 6 World Championships overall in 15 seasons that we've played. So can't ask for much better than that. We've, a lot of times you may remember from the Yankees playthrough that I did back in OOTP 22, you feel that you've got the best team and you just don't win in the playoffs, which is kind of the way that it goes in real Major League Baseball sometimes. But we've been real lucky with these Royals because I think we're 6-0 in the World Series. I think we've gone 6 times, and I think we've won every single one of them. So you definitely don't expect for that to be the case. Take a look at the box score. Hillman feeling even better about signing him to that long-term deal. 4 hits, no walks, 6 strikeouts, no earned runs over 7 2/3. Choi and Pryor came on and did not allow any runs in relief. And then the offense was just overwhelming. 3 runs batted in from Laziosi, a couple from the series MVP Vasquez, 5 driven in by Javi Medina, 3 runs driven in by Victor Avelar, and a couple even by our number 9 hitter, Tony Fonseca. As we talked about already, Avelar and Medina with the homers, Medina and Laziosi with triples, and then Vasquez, Laziosi, and Flores had doubles. So just a overwhelming effort for the Royals today to take Game 5 of the World Series 15-0, win the World Series 4-1. We'll sim ahead one day just so we can see. I thought that they would show the stats for Alex Vasquez as the MVP of the World Series. I must have, don't know why I was expecting to see that. Looks like we have a bench coach offer for Rio Hidaka, who is our manager down in the DSL, so we'll have to deal with that. But we are not going to let the potential departure of Rio Hidaka back to Japan and the Yomiuri Giants to rain on our parade. The Royals have 3 World Championships in a row at this point, so I guess we've got to go for the four-peat next year. This was the first time that there were 3 in a row since the Yankees did it, as I mentioned, in the late 90s to 2000. Four in a row. I'm trying to think about my baseball history. I know it was the Yankees, and I'm a Yankees fan, but it was before my time. I think is it. I feel like the Yankees, did they win five in a row once and four in a row once? Certainly back in the late 30s. But I guess we're going to be going for four in a row. Or I think with Casey Stengel once they won five in a row, didn't they? I should really know this. I'm kind of in when I was probably in my teens, in my 20s, in my 30s, I would have remembered facts like that. But as you get older, I'm starting to forget things. But regardless, we're going to have to run it back next year and try to get a fourth World Series championship in a row with the Royals. Definitely not something I would ever have expected to do with a low market team when we began that has been turned into a middle market team. But it's been an awesome run, and I've been enjoying it. I hope you have been too. And another World Series championship is in the books for the Royals this year, and you can tell we've been simming this game for a long time because we don't generate pictures for the new players, and you can see that Bobby Witt Jr. is the only guy left on the roster who was from the original year in the majors of this back in 2022. I don't think Bobby Witt Jr. is going to retire yet, but he really didn't play much at all in the playoffs. Have to go back and look at his stats, but did have that home run early. But although there is a Royals player retiring, we'll click on that. I'm trying to think who it could be if it's not Bobby Witt Jr. This is exciting. Not that I really want him to retire because I guess he's going out with 3 straight championships, and we're not going to have to see him, if he is retiring, kind of being a very ineffective player. And it obviously clears a ton of money off of our books, but then it also puts me in a position, if it is him retiring, the thing I wanted to do with this playthrough was play through it all with Bobby Witt Jr., and if he's gone, what are we playing for? I guess we can't not run things back and try to win a fourth in a row. And maybe it's somebody else. Maybe it's just some random other player, but I can't think of anyone else besides him who it would be that's retiring. We will have to deal with Ryo Hidaka and that offer from the Yomiuri Giants. Decide if we want to keep him around managing our DSL team. Not shockingly, not a great thing that Ben Borgman decided to execute his player option, but we kind of thought that was expected, so we will have him on the books next season. Reviewing the goals, won a World Series, 3 in a row and 6 overall. They probably will be erecting a statue of me in front of Kauffman Stadium, although generally they don't build statues for general managers, but Bobby Witt Jr. certainly will have a statue in front of Kauffman Stadium. Arrighetto Laziosi did a good job at second base, got a championship, new goals for next year, win another championship, improve our team defensive efficiency, find a top 20 prospect, build a top 6 minor league system, and build a dynasty in the next 5 seasons. So, hey, we've won 3 in a row in 4 out of 6 World Series, and you're asking us to build another dynasty? Boy, these owners are never satisfied. Let's take a look at the budget situation here. $278 million, so I think that's another small bump. Obviously, if we do have Bobby Witt Jr. on the books along with Ben Borgman, we've got some money that is not the most efficiently spent. But we'll be figuring all of that out in the off season. We're going to wait and see who this retiring player is at the end. It's kind of a cliffhanger here. I think it's probably Bobby Witt Jr., though. I don't know who else it would be. Borgman, would have thought that there was a chance that it was him. Arbitration is beginning. Off season is beginning. Top prospect list is published. Maxime de la Cruz now number 5. You may remember, I'm sure you do remember since I talk about it incessantly, he is the player who we traded away to bring on Eddie Chavera, who has been a starting pitcher for us now on 3 consecutive World Series teams. So I think trading away, one of the top prospects in baseball to bring on Chavera was worthwhile. He finally got up to the majors at the end of this season, hit just .233 with 2 homers and 60 at-bats. Does potentially profile as a pretty useful offensive player with that potentially exceptional contact. But doesn't have, a great position to play in the infield, 6'3", so you could play him at first base. You can play him at second or third if you have to. You don't want to play him at short. And you could play him at left or right, and you could play him at center in a pinch. So he's versatile defensively, potentially, but not exceptional anywhere. Clearly with 3 championships in a row, and Eddie Chavera being a starting pitcher for us on all 3 of those teams. No regrets at all about that trade. Losing some additional personnel with pitching coach and our manager leaving one of our Arizona teams. Northwest Arkansas, our AA team, B.J. Roper-Hubbert's going to leave the team. We didn't extend his contract. Davis Fernandez, who's a 22-year-old, is retiring out of the Arizona League. And now, who is retiring from the Royals? I guess it's a chance that it's like an older reliever out of the bullpen, but I just can't think that it's anyone except Bobby Witt Jr. And Bobby Witt Jr. is calling it a career. I was kind of hoping that we'd get to try to make a run at 400 homers and 3,000 hits with him, but as I talked about coincidentally at the start of this episode, not necessarily thinking something like this was going to happen so quickly, his ratings have just fallen off a cliff over the last 12 to 18 months, and it looks like knowing that his ratings were lower, he didn't want to kind of embarrass himself. So at the age of 36, he's calling it a career. Ended up with a .280 batting average, 2,233 hits, 339 homers, 1,345 runs scored, and 1,186 runs driven in. As we talked about earlier in this episode, 80.6 career WAR, which is the best in history for the Royals. You can see his Hall of Fame metrics, above average in JAWS, below average in black ink, below average in gray ink, right on line in the Hall of Fame standards, and a little below average Hall of Famer in the Hall of Fame monitor. So would tend to think that he will make it, probably not a first ballot Hall of Famer, but that 80.6 WAR is going to be tough to overlook. And Bobby Witt Jr. Retires with a lot of hardware. He was the AL Rookie of the Year in 2022, 9-time Gold Glove winner, 10-time All-Star, 2 Silver Slugger Awards, 6 World Series championships, and he was the MVP of 4 playoff series, the 2027 Division Series, the 2030 Wild Card Series, the 2031 Division Series, and the 2035 AL Division Series. We'll just take a look at the playoff stats from this year, which are, not going to be impressive. Yeah, he only played in 2 games, that 1 start. He was 2 for 6. He did have that home run back in the ALDS, so that was really kind of the last hurrah for him. And I guess he saw the handwriting on the wall when he did not get a lot of playing time. And as we talked about at the start of this episode, you look at his ratings, and you kind kind of see that it's over for him. Just not the player that he once was earlier in his career. 450 stolen bases exactly, only 75 caught stealing, so very efficient on the base paths. As I mentioned, even last year, if he had played a full season, he was definitely in the running to be an MVP candidate. So a very good, solid career from Bobby Witt Jr. in this playthrough with the Royals. And we'll take a quick look through some of the top seasons in Kansas City history to see where Bobby Witt Jr. ranks. He's not all over some of the single season marks. Not even slugging percentage for his career. He's 9th among the Royals. OPS for his career, he's 8th among the Royals. WAR is certainly where he stands out with that great defensive glove and a very good bat. 80.6 WAR for his career, which is almost 10 higher than a fellow excellent third baseman George Brett, and hopefully at some point down the line, fellow Hall of Famer Bobby Witt Jr. You can see 6 of the top 10 WAR seasons in Royals history were had by Bobby Witt Jr. Brett in 1980 and 1981 had the two of the 3 top seasons, and then Alex Vasquez and Angelo Velasquez have both had top 10 WAR seasons for the Royals in the last 5 or 6 seasons. But with 6 of the top 10 WAR seasons in history, with Bobby Witt Jr.'s name next to him, definitely explains why he's the top Royal all time in WAR. He's third in games played in his career, just behind that duo of George Brett and Frank White, who played together for so much of the 70s and 80s. Second in all-time at-bats, behind only George Brett. Second in all-time runs, behind only George Brett. I think we're going to see a consistent theme here. Second in all-time hits, behind only George Brett. Second in all-time total bases, behind only George Brett. Third in singles, behind both George Brett and Willie Wilson. Second in doubles, behind only George Brett. He's not on the triples list. Didn't have a ton of that kind of speed. He is the Royals' all-time leading home run hitter with 22 more than George Brett over the course of his career. Second in runs batted in, behind George Brett. Second in stolen bases, behind only the fleet Willie Wilson. He's kind of down the list in caught stealings with just 75, so he was very efficient on the base paths. Second all-time in walks, behind George Brett. Third in hit by pitches, and he struck out more than any batter in Royals history. So excellent career for Bobby Witt Jr. is in the books, which obviously means I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with this playthrough. We wanted to see through Bobby Witt Jr.'s career to the end with the Royals, so we've now done that. It happened a lot more quickly than I would have hoped, but can I really just walk away from a playthrough with the Royals being a juggernaut and potentially trying to win a 4th consecutive championship? Let me know your thoughts down below. I'm going to give it some thought myself also. Don't really know exactly what to do, but it's I'm almost at a loss for words. I've been doing this playthrough now for literally over 5 months and 15 seasons, and Bobby Witt Jr. has been a part of the Royals since the start, so it's going to be weird if we keep playing and he's not part of the team. So I'll make the decision regardless on what I want to do, whether I want to start something new or come back and see if we can win 4 in a row with these Royals. But would love to hear your thoughts down below as to what you think we should do next. So until that next episode, when we will review all of the top and bottom performers from the Royals from this championship season, and either start making plans for next year or decide to wrap things up. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.